Hello, hello, and good morning, and welcome to the Coaches Corner, brought to you by the Endurance Lab, where the coaches from the lab recap the week and answer your questions from the forum. My name's Jason Flores, one of the Endurance Lab coaches, and I'm joined today by Taya Friedstead and Mitch Dangerman. Good morning, guys.
Morning.
Yeah, I know Taya's there. She's just finishing up some notes. There she is. All right. Everyone's just getting their final notes in. It's been a busy week here at the Endurance Lab. We've got lots of stuff going on for our groups. We've got a lively, informative forum that we've been kind of heading through with our riders, kind of parsing out all the great information that we've been delving out to them week after week. So we'll head over to our notes page here, and we'll go ahead and get started. We're actually going to jump straight into the hot topics of the lab. I know Taya's got a lot of great topics for conversation today, so we'll throw it over to her, and we'll get this conversation started. Good morning, Taya.
Hello. Thanks, Jason. Good morning, everyone. So we have some good topics here that came up in the forum. The first one that I'm going to address was a question that came up on how to approach your training if you miss almost a month of training. So this person in particular was ill and was off the bike for about a month. And this is not a serious illness. It's a sinus infection, etc. So we're not talking about something that requires heavy medicine or hospitalization, anything like that. Okay, so just being off the bike because you aren't feeling well, some respiratory issues. In this case, and of course, as you know, by now, if you train with us, there's so many variables. So there's not one recipe that will give the answer for absolutely everyone. So I will use the best that I can for a general example here. So assuming that this person is doing, let's say, at this time of the year, some peak training. So it's racing season, or they're approaching racing season, they're finishing, let's say, the build period, going into peak period, or around that time, and boom, they get sick and they're off the bike. Unfortunately, for that period of time, once you are ready to come back to cycling and to training, you have to be conservative, even more conservative than if you are off the bike if you're on vacation, right?
Yes.
So really, you have to be conservative with the workout length and intensity as you start back up, by doing only short to medium duration workouts. And the intensity will primarily be in zones 1 and 2. So your week, when you start back, your first week might be just 2 to 3 hours that week of easy riding, 1 hour a day, separated by a day off. And so it's really starting from the beginning. And once you, let's say, approach week 2 or 3, you start to build it up. But we're looking here at 2 to 4 weeks to go back to where you were. This is, so 1 month off the bike, you're looking for almost the same amount of time to build it back up, and you do it conservatively. So your week might start to look like a base training week. If you think about base training, if you're not familiar with the term, you're looking at doing, at first, 1 intensity workout a week, and the other rides are easy, and you have 3 days off. Then you build to 2 intensity workouts a week. And those intensity workouts are not even super intense either. You're not going and doing a race simulation. You're not going and doing 90 minutes of sweet spot either. You're going and doing, 45 minutes to an hour, but really focusing on aerobic type work and doing those. So in terms, any comments before I move on to numbers here?
No, I definitely think it's, for conversation, a lot of us are involved with the Zwift Academy, and that's bringing out a lot of riders out of, I guess, kind of hiding, I feel like, and they're kind of jumping back in and getting that motivation. And along with this, not only is there a big jump in intensity of their rides or the amount that they're riding, I think people are keeping their numbers, and we'll talk a little bit about that in the next question here, about keeping their FTP numbers kind of all throughout the year. And one thing that we try to kind of relate to riders, when you're coming back from things like illness or time from off the bike, you need to be honest with your numbers and need to kind of back off on those And really, the idea of looking at the week at how many intense workouts you're doing is really key. So the way riders grow, whether they are indoor riders, outdoor riders, pro riders, whatever it is, you have a certain number of intensity workouts, like Taya was saying, 1 or 2. Really, kind of the physiological, max is around 3. Science shows around 2 or 3 intense workouts is enough. So how do you get volume? How do you get that extra bit? It's on these lower intensity rides. That's right, everybody. Your social rides. You're supposed to be at a lower zone 1, zone 2. And that's where you're going to get that extra TSS. And that's where you're going to build back from coming back from off the bike. These zone 1, zone 2 efforts are going to get that aerobic system back up. And those 1 or 2 intensity, as you adjust them, that's key. I know Mitch has got some really great experience with this too. So, kind of coming back and kind of getting his body back and ready.
We're still working on it. It feels like a multi-year project, but that's just because I think life is so busy. But you guys are absolutely correct. Is that, I mean, when you start rushing things, especially if you're talking running, I think cycling can be the same way, because I think we forget we can get physiological injuries as well. Cycling, you've got to come back slow, and you've got to take your time and build. I think it's always, for me, it's a constant reminder that, I'm not doing this for a paycheck.
Yes.
I'm doing this for my fitness and my fun. And if I shortchange it and jeopardize that recovery and that build, and they get injured again, there goes the fun and why am I doing it, right? So I think it's finding that balance as always. It's being patient, and it's working towards a goal in a progressive fashion. And I think that's how you're going to be successful.
Yeah.
Great comments there, and thanks for bringing in the Zwift Academy example of a lot of riders who are either new to riding or have been off the bike for a while, jumping right into doing super hard workouts back to back, which is not recommended.
Yeah, and so many times questions come up: when should I do this, and when should I do this? And if you're questioning, should I do this, you probably shouldn't do it, and you should probably take a day of rest. Plenty of time to get this all done. One thing that we have in our schedules of workouts is there's always time to kind of move things around and to work with things. And there's always other workouts that you can slot in that'll be less intense, that you can still get fitness from. Because a lot of times we all get excited. You have a new program and you want to just get on the bike. So there's got to be those options. And so we offer those to our athletes, of course, and we remind when we do any of our consultation or just kind of chatting with others, to remind them to take that time off, or to take those easy rides and make the easy rides easy, so that you could do your hard rides hard.
That's right. So putting some more data into how we would recommend coming back, if you have been training with a heart rate monitor and a power meter, or either of those, then you have a pretty good idea where you were before you had to take time off the bike. So as you start to build it back up, then when you feel like you're hitting the same numbers that you were before, so in other words, your aerobic endurance workouts are indicating that you are back where you left off before the lost training, aerobically back, then you will know, because your heart rate and power will again match what they were and before you got sick.
Mm-hmm.
And then in terms of TSS, just using here, and I wrote down a couple of numbers for a master's rider. So somebody in the master's category who trains, let's say, 8 hours a week. That gives an average of 400 hours a year. You're looking at starting your backup when you start to train again. You start with 300 TSS a week for that first week, or even 200, and then 300, and then you build from there. So that's your base period type TSS when you start to come back up. And again, TSS meaning not all that TSS is going to come from intensity. Maybe only 70 of those 300 will come from intensity workouts, or maybe maximum 100 TSS to start with when you're doing two intensity workouts of 50 TSS each, because your intervals are short and not so intense.
Right. So often we'll see how much stress they can get from like a VO2 max workout or a sprint workout or that sort of thing, or like the local group ride, which is all over the place. We all know that for our athletes, they can rack up a lot of TSS during that time. So realizing where a bulk of it should be coming from and where that intensity should be a smaller amount of it is key. Is key not for just fitness, but key for just like longevity in your training, to be able to keep going on and keep doing that. So that's super important. Do we have anything else as far as yeah, go ahead. As far as numbers,
one last comment I'll make is so we were happy to work on with athletes one-on-one to get them back up and running. We can do that as a consultation and even design that build for them to get back to where they left off, just looking at how much they were training before the break, and looking at the files that way, and then moving forward to help them get up to speed.
Yeah, that's been a great thing that for a lot of riders they don't know where to get started and don't know where to get going, or they just took like a short couple weeks off and they want to get back into stride and they don't know exactly how easy or how hard to start. So really great thing that you can sign up for. Really quick thing. Takes a little bit of time to get set up and then you can go from there. What do we got next there, Tam?
So the next question came from Martin, and this is related to Zwift Academy workouts. So this year's workouts were quite different from last year's workouts, and they are pretty straightforward in that you can clearly see in workouts 4, 5, 6, and 7 that they were designed to be tests, because they have, they sort of tell you that in the instructions. They say, oh, we're going to do this, do these efforts for X amount of time, and this is to give you an idea of where we want you to be, but this is your free ride for 25 seconds, then 1 minute, then 4 minutes, then 10 minutes for each of those workouts, so we can see how much power you can put down for that amount of time.
Yep.
And even in some of them, like the workout number 7, which is the 10-minute effort, they tell you, well, usually we expect riders to be at 110% of FTP for the 10 minutes. So it's all laid in there. And the question that came up was, well, that's interesting, but what are these tests telling us? And are we going to get any feedback from Zwift on the results? And the answer is no, right? And no, for obvious reasons. This is a program that is designed for the masses here. I'm told there are 4,000 women signed up and 30,000 total athletes signed up. 30,000 seems like a huge number to me, but in the thousands for sure. So there is no way that riders will be receiving any type of individual feedback other than looking at today's plan, which is the software that's being used, and looking at charts and trying to make sense of those. Right. But nevertheless, I'll do a quick list here of the workouts and what they mean. So number 4 is intensive anaerobic. We're looking at your maximum power for 25 seconds. This is clearly designed to see what kind of effort you can put down in a race scenario. That could be a long sprint, that could be a big surge, that can be trying to go for a breakaway. So 25-second max power. I don't know why it's not, let's say, 30 seconds, but I guess you can extract 5 seconds from there.
Yeah, because it goes both ways, right? So it can go from the 25 seconds down to like your 15-second power. Not so far to your 5, but anywhere from 25 to 30 seconds. It's a long haul. 30 seconds is a long way to go. And the next one you're going to talk about 1 minute, and that's like kind of my jam. It's my sweet spot. 1 minute is a really telltale one. So yeah, let's talk about that. I think that's probably one that's really telltale.
Yeah, so that 1 minute power, number 5, workout number 5, extensive anaerobic. They want to see how much power you can produce for that 1 minute. This is it could be the last kilometer of a race. It could be finishing up a race on an uphill. So it's really racing, winning type efforts, and how long you can sustain. So in the video instructions that we have in the Endurance Lab YouTube channel, we talk about, for these efforts, finding what you can maintain for the duration and not going super hard at the beginning and then fading. So there's no value in going super hard for the first 10 seconds, and then fading to half of that power for the remainder.
That's right. Yeah, during the live stream that I had, and I did the 1 minute workout, key to finishing, you could actually see it. Even in the group workout, you could see people fade and people drop off the back. It was so odd because I was in I think it was view 990, which is pretty far out, and I just kept trying to remind people. And Patrick Tan, who was in that ride too, is one of the ride leaders for Academy, kept trying to remind people. And he's a big track rider too, so he knows what 1,000 meters. He knows what 60 seconds feels like. Pacing is key. You want to finish strong, and it's important. And the thing about it is, see the workout is odd. So unless you have the settings really dialed in, like some riders, depending on where we were for that day, we were on the volcano. If you happen to be on an uphill and it went to free ride, you'd end up with all this resistance on your trainer. So if you're on a kicker or a smart trainer, so it was kind of odd in that respect. It wasn't completely open resistance in the coding, at least when I looked at it. So the key was to get up to speed, and pacing is key. You can't go all out for a minute. It's just physiologically impossible. So you need to pace yourself. You need to know where to start and then push yourself in that final 30 seconds. So
what's interesting here is when you think about the fact that they're having these tests and there's a lot of new riders, we all know that all of these times pacing is so important. And the more times you do an FTP test, or the more times you do this 1 minute max power test, the better you're going to get at it, because you learn the pacing and you learn how to do it. And it's interesting to think about new riders trying to glean something from this the first time they do it.
Yeah, because the first three efforts, and then on top of that, the first three efforts are all 95% of the people are on ERG. So you have no idea pacing, because somebody is pacing and someone's holding the wattage for you. And then people are still failing those. And then at that point, then they're like, they take it off ERG, and then they're like, oh my gosh, like they're all over the track.
It's gotta be so frustrating for.
It has to be for any rider that isn't versed in like how it feels. It's nuts. But yeah, anyways, my qualms with ERG on and off. We don't need to go back into that.
So you just have a dumb trainer, and then you don't worry about ERG.
Yeah, it's funny. But then people get all mad. Why'd you spend $1,500? I go, I spent it for the days that I ride tempo. And I need to be able to ride it like I do outside, and I have to change gears like I do outside. Yeah. I ride ocean flat. It goes up and down, and I have to change those gears, and I have to be able to do that when I'm with a group and trying to stay with the pace. That's important, and that's when you use it as a controllable trainer. I think that's important. And longer ones, like Taya loves, she always talks about longer efforts, 10 minutes plus, 5 minutes plus. It's great to get dialed in and not have to worry about what gear you're in. You just hit the wattage.
Right. Yeah. So then the number 6 workout was the max aerobic. And that is, again, how much power I can produce, this time for 4 minutes. And now we're getting more into climbing and time trialing type efforts. And that sort of territory for the 4 minutes. Again, pacing is key. They give you some intervals ahead of time so you can have an idea of what the effort might feel like and how you feel in those efforts at the different ranges of power that they provide. So then when you hit your 4 minutes by yourself on your own, you might have a pretty good idea of what you can do. But again, goes back to what we just said in terms of, for a new rider, somebody not used to it, it can get hard to achieve.
Yeah.
Then number 7 is the intensive aerobic. That is getting very close to the traditional 20-minute FTP test that so many people do. And that one, 10-minute max, the pace, again, pacing super important. Trying to keep the power. In this one, because it's 10 minutes, you could start a little more conservative and increase as you go on. But the expected percentage there from the coaches from Zwift Academy's notes in there was 110% of FTP for the duration.
For 10 minutes.
Yeah.
There's very, very few riders that can hold that, like VO2 max efforts above 105 for above 8 minutes. Like even 6 minutes for the most seasoned VO2 riders at 105 plus is very difficult. So 110 is
right.
ambitious.
So for somebody, you know, doing these workouts, not going for the pro contract, doing and trying to understand what do these all mean for me. It really, you know, it can be used for, of course, designing workouts. So it can, if you are receiving a tailored training plan, you might have an idea of your weaknesses and your strengths, if provided you are experienced and you know how to train, because otherwise these intervals might just mean nothing. Like Jason was giving the example of erg on and off and what happens then, or what Mitch was saying also about pacing and being a new rider. So it could give you an idea of your weaknesses or your strengths. It might shed some light on your phenotype, what kind of rider you are. Mm-hmm. Are you an explosive rider? Are you better at short explosive efforts, or are you more of a steady state rider, diesel engine, etc.? But for the Zwift Academy coaches, they're probably looking to just, it's like a big way of just kind of filtering and looking at the, let's say, top numbers that they can get from riders here.
Yeah, so essentially, I brought in a link to the show notes of from Training Peaks to try to get a better understanding of what's called power profiling, and that's what that's called. And that was designed by Dr. Andrew Coggin and kind of that group of riders of putting together or trying to classify riders within this essentially 5 second, 1 minute, 5 minute, and 20 minute categories. They've kind of simplified it to it would be 25, 1 minute, 4 minute, 10 minute, but each has their own kind of category. So they may be using today's plan to kind of work that out. Those riders that are in the higher categories of watts per kilogram is how it's measured, can give an idea of kind of a rider's ability through what's called a power profile. And depending on how your power profile works, it can tell a coach what kind of rider you are, like Tia was mentioning. So there's a little bit more information, at least from the Training Peak side. Today's plan may take a little bit of a different approach, but very similar in taking those different watts per kilogram in different time windows, and then taking that to kind of compare that to get an idea of what kind of rider you are. All right. Were there any other questions that came up from your end, Tia? Looks like those are the two big ones that you had brought up today, right?
Right. Those are the two.
Those are really good ones. I think, illness, and then trying to getting your head around like testing or just any type of testing, whether it be FTP testing or just kind of how a group would look at kind of a mass amount of number of riders and how they're riding is important. So. All right, let's shift gears here. Mitch had brought up some really great topics during our normal through the week talk that we have. We have a group chat that we have kind of talking about different things kind of in the endurance world and different things going on. And he's got a couple things that he's going to bring in, some great stories, as well as some stories for some ideas for conversation that get us talking about kind of it comes down to kind of our whys and kind of why we do things. And so some really great information. So Mitch, enlighten us, bring us some info here.
Yeah, so I've got it's the penchant. I love ultra kind of endurance things, like Dean Carnevez. In ultra running, those stories are amazing. A few years ago, there was a guy by the name of James Lawrence. He goes by the Iron Cowboy, and over a long period of time, he won and set the record for the number of half Ironmans in 1 year, which was maybe it was 30 or so. He then decided he'd set the record for the number of full Ironmans in a year, which was maybe 22. And then he got this idea that he would do 50 triathlons in 50 days in 50 states. And they sold their house, they bought a van, and the whole family went and did this. He raised money for charity. It was a huge soap opera on Slow Twitch. He took all kinds of abuse because I think one day around day 20 or so, he did the run on an elliptical. He was hooked up to IVs at points. You know, he managed it well because he kept people from the communities to come out and support him. He did some rides on an indoor trainer, but I think he accomplished it, which, you know, maybe not per all the rules for Ironman racing, but I mean, I challenge anybody to go out there and do that amount of, you know, say, I think his average time was under 14 hours per day.
Interesting.
So, I mean, go do 14 hours of endurance training every day for 50 days in a row.
Oh my God.
Which is amazing, right? Well, so fast forward to today, and in the last few weeks, there's been another huge soap opera on Slow Twitch. You guys get the idea. I spend a lot of time on that website. But there's this fitness model. She's a lifter. She does CrossFit. She's a trainer. I think she sold like over 1 million training plans for like 17 different books that she has or something. Yeah, and she's got a whole host of businesses. Her name is Ashley Horner. She's got an Instagram page. You can check her out. Well, she decided that she was going to be the female equivalent of the Iron Cowboy and raise money for a charity in Haiti. It's an orphanage. So it's a really great story, and you gotta admire her for doing this, except for the fact that her history of endurance sports is, I think, a couple half marathons, a full marathon, and a half Ironman. Never completed a full Ironman before, you know, not one, let alone 50 in 50 days in 50 states. So she's taken a ton of abuse on a few different websites, but a ton of support as well. And I've been really conflicted because everyone knows I've got 3 daughters, and the position of women in society and sports is really important to me. And I'm really conflicted because part of me is like, you know what, this is great that she's pursuing this goal. But the other part is, but you're not respecting the goal because you didn't really do the work leading up to it. And yesterday I spent some time looking around, and there's this awesome quote, and apologies it's taken me so long to get to the meat here. But so from the Iron Cowboy, because I think he's probably following this as well, he said, and it's a long quote, but just bear with me. It took me a decade to get here. People know I did 50 Ironmans in 50 states. The book I wrote gets into the nitty-gritty of how I got to the point where we believe we could possibly conceive and accomplish and take on this feat. And it's a decade worth of doing different things, learning, growing, evolving. The problem that I see with a lot of people is they get inspired. They get empowered. They want to do something. They pick the biggest goal. But the biggest mistake they make is they don't respect the time frame associated with accomplishing that goal. They try to take shortcuts and get to the goal as fast as they can. It always leads to failure because they're not respecting the process and the incredible steps it takes to get to that point where you have just an incredible foundation, where the next step in that process and evolution is the big goal. And there's so much in that quote for everything we do in life, from a sprint triathlon or a Thursday night crit to an Ironman or to some kind of epic multi-day endurance event. So I just think it's a great way to look at it and look at this Ashley Horner situation, where what's bothering me is she didn't give the respect to the process, and she hasn't worked to where she's going to get success at this. And I feel bad because she's invariably, and we're already seeing it after she's done 3 now, 3 Ironmans in I think 4 or 5 days. But you already see that she's gonna have a real struggle today, and it's you don't want to see that.
Yeah, I'm flicking through Instagram, and she just finished Maryland. I think it was yesterday, 8 hours ago. Right. And even on day 2, going back, let's see one more. It was in Virginia Beach, where she was having fueling issues. She's hitting walls at mile 13. Yep. And I mean, these are stories, and that's the reason why she's put this together, right? Stories between it. But this comes from, the Iron Man, the Dave Canazes. Those are people like you just have heard about them and known about them doing this sort of thing for a long time, and having issues with the stories and the issues that we're hearing about getting, just being, poor sleep, food issues, extreme fatigue. I'm reading from her Instagram, fighting humidity and heat. These are things that veterans know what to do about. Not saying that we know what to do, but just that we've heard the stories and we've seen like guys like the Iron Cowboy or those ultra runners out there they know what it takes to get through. And I'm sure she has people on her team, but it's a matter of having that experience, like in your quote, Yeah,
so today, we just talked about about Ashley Horner. So what's interesting is you start thinking about, you have 24 hours and your body needs rest and recovery at some point. And she's starting her days at 6 a.m. and she's going to probably be dangerously close to 18-hour today. So that means that she's going to have 6 hours when she finishes, essentially, right, to eat, get cleaned up, unwind, and sleep, and then get up to do it again the next day. And that's what's amazing about these multi-day challenges, is that you've got to manage the rest and recovery. There has to be something. And so you can't be doing 18, 19 hours a day, because you eventually run out of time to sleep.
Right. And I think I think you can correct me if I'm wrong in what you talked about there. So for the Iron Cowboy, he wasn't doing sanctioned races. Is Ashley doing all sanctioned races, or is she doing some not?
She's not. No, I'm not sure she's doing any sanction. I think she's just
going to places.
Going to places, and you try to basically find your way around the country.
Got it.
But so if what someone actually said was, that makes the challenge even harder, right? Is that you're doing it in a different state every day because you have to transport yourself. You could try to design. I think the Iron Cowboy, he said that they spent months figuring out the route around the country and the routes they would do in each state, because you want to try to make it right. If you can make the bike point to point and get close to the border.
Oh, that makes sense.
Right? There's a lot of thought that goes into it. And it'd be a lot easier to do it in your hometown and swim at the same pool every day.
50 days. Oh my gosh.
It's mind numbing. But I want to go back. Go ahead, Tay.
Tay's like blowing up. She's boiling up.
Oh my God. Yeah. It takes months to plan 5 days of riding for a little camp. You know what I mean? It's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, so the other thing too, which really I think bothered a lot of people, was, so the first one was going to be in Haiti, because that's where the orphanage was. And they didn't understand the logistics and the rules on shipping bikes to Haiti. And they found out at the last minute, like literally the day before she was going to start, that her bike couldn't go to Haiti. So she did the first ride on a Huffy.
Yeah. Just the local, whatever bike, mountain bike type deal.
Right. But let's take it back really quick though. Because we were talking about coming back from a month off, and this applies here as well, right? Is that you've got a goal that you want to be back to your fitness. It's about planning it out and figuring out the steps and getting there in a healthy and kind of efficient manner. And I think that's a lot of what, Taya was saying. Look, we can help people figure out these ways back. That's what coaching, that's what good trainers can do, is they can actually help you figure this stuff out.
Yeah. Looks like she. Go ahead.
And I love the part of the quote that talks about respecting the process.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much in that, because the process encompasses not only that plan, but also the experience, right? So for somebody we often, and going back to what Mitch said, not just in sports, but in life, we see somebody be successful at something, and it just seems like it just happened. It just sprouted out of nowhere, that they woke up one day and they were successful. But really, if you dig into their story, it's typically very long, and it takes so long, 10 years in this case of the Iron Cowboy. It's a long process. And not only to get there, because you need that body adaptation, but you also need to understand how your body reacts, because you can be reading books all day long on how to do these things, but you don't know what your body's going to be doing as you go through it. So that's when you do it for an hour and you see what your body does, and you do that for many years and you understand how that works. Right? It's like Stephanie this past weekend doing a 24-hour race.
Oh, yeah.
She was able to do that because she has been training, and she has been learning about not only training, but herself in that training and what she needs. And yeah, and she listens to us all the time because, she listens to the Coaches Corner and she talks to us in the forum. But at the end of the day, it's using that and applying to her reality. And so it's really how you experience it, you learn from it in your own case, and respecting that process.
Absolutely.
Yes, I was just reading while Taya was talking. So this is what everyone's kind of anticipating. She got a late start today, so she's supposed to be in the pool by 6:30. She got in the pool around 7:45, so she's lost an hour and 15 minutes. A 18-hour day puts her past midnight, and I don't think anyone's going to quibble about the whether it's all done in one day or not. I'd be amazed and excited if she did 50 in 60 days. But it's cumulative, right? It's that cumulative fatigue.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to continue to build up, and you can't get away from. She had some hydration issues yesterday.
Yeah.
Now, what's interesting is the other thing that people have been critical of is she didn't enlist the community. She actually has just a small group that's been with her so far, but people are starting to come out and swim at the same time with her, and she's starting to feed off the energy, which I think is important because you've got to have support for anything that you do. We've talked about this before. You're on a training plan. You've got to have the support of your family, right? You've got to have people that are there for you and encouraging you and give you that energy to move forward and then start doing some of these bigger goals.
Absolutely. I think that to get for that longevity of ultra running or ultra distances, and you hear the stories of a lot of the other podcasts I listen to. Ultra running is a big family community thing. Within the community of runners, but also with the families of those runners out there on those long hauls, those 24-hour races, that sort of thing. And, having that, even from the little bit that we heard from, let's say Martin, he's one of our, he's an ultra cyclist. Yep. And then, over the weekend, I'm sorry, who did the 24-hour one? It was Kristen, right?
Stephanie.
Oh, Stephanie. Yeah. And then her being able to get the messages and kind of using that as energy. It's that push that you have from the group of people that you kind of always reach to, that you can kind of dig deep down inside, that you kind of want that.
Yeah, for sure.
For sure.
So I definitely think it's something worth a conversation of. I think getting it out there into the community, into our community, if people haven't had it on their radar, not speaking or poo-pooing kind of what she's doing. I think she's doing great as far as bringing something up for a great cause. But again, and I think James Lawrence said it well, is people just get inspired, but you on the opposite side, how Taya mentioned, is you have to be able to respect kind of the process and understand what you're doing. And coming from a different background, I'm hoping that she has the people behind her to get her through. I mean, but we're starting. What was that, Mitch? Day 4 or number 4? Is she on?
They've reset the clock a little because the Haiti swim was short, so no one's really sure if this is day 3 or 4. But regardless, I mean, she's done three long days of training and racing in the last 5 days, I think, and so she's starting another day 4 of extreme kind of fitness. So we'll see.
Yeah, we'll have to see. So yeah, she's got a great Instagram that looks like she's got people helping her put that together. So place to look for her, Ashley.Horner on Instagram. I've got a link to her actual webpage that's got a lot of other information here in the show notes as well, so we could bring that in. But really great to bring that.
We're gonna get Coach Ian and Ashley together and have them put some fitness videos up.
Oh, that would be so good. I don't know. She's pretty strong though, man. She
might pick him up.
Yeah. I mean, all respect to our CrossFit athletes that we've had. Very, very strong. Both the athletes or just the friends that I know that do it are amazingly resilient. But they do, again, they have to respect the same way we do in cycling. You have to respect the intensity that you do. You have to make sure that you get the recovery that you need and that you're fueling the body. It's not any different than any endurance sport. Even though it feels like it's very high intense at a certain point, because a lot of what they call their metcom or metabolic conditioning workouts are longer than a couple minutes, it becomes aerobic. And that's one thing that even on their side, in conversations that you have with their athletes and their coaches, is that aerobic conditioning is still key, is still king for anything that's over outside of the powerlifting range that you see maybe on television or videos of where people are just lifting an amazing amount of weight over their head for that short period of time. But if you see things like we talked last week about the CrossFit games, and they're doing day after day, that stuff is highly, highly aerobic in the same way that our sport is. Okay, so looking at that, some really great topics there. We've got one more topic on. We've got a little bit of time. Did you guys want to cover that last article there? Do you guys have some comments that you want to bring in?
Is that the air quality?
Yeah, we can jump into that. I could pull up that article.
Yes, I don't have that issue here where I live.
Yeah.
We just have sunny blue skies and no natural disasters.
Yeah, and I guess the reason why I bring it up, this is one of our friends, Nate Dunn. He's a friend of the podcast. He's done some podcasts with Justin Wagner on What's Up with Power. He's brought a lot of great live video to the Zwift scene. He's a Zwift fan as well. But he had an article that came out, I think it was just 2 days ago on August 15th. He's here on the West Coast, and if you're not familiar with what's going on here, there are some crazy fires. He lives a little bit more northern California, so there's actually more fires up there than there are here in Southern California where I'm at. So the air over the last 2 or 3 weeks has been really bad. So he put a little bit together. You guys should have the link there for the article talking about air quality and cycling. And we could talk a little bit about kind of the different levels that you're looking at on the weather. And then we could talk a little bit about kind of our experiences with it. But I guess let's start with that. Let's start with the conversation. I'm kind of like, where do you draw the line for yourself, for your family, for your athletes? Kind of where are you at? Obviously, Mitch has got blue skies. He has no excuse but to go outside and ride every single day.
So true. So true.
It is. I've looked at other areas, and even when I was in Indiana, just south of a couple miles south, I guess, of Taya, it was actually pretty clean air. I was very surprised of how clean, and when I did come back home to visit California and I was in school, of how bad it really is here. Like the air is very, very bad here. I don't, and even going to Arizona when I was with everyone, it was just one state over. It was so much better. Yeah. It was so much better. You could like breathe. I didn't have all this like weird stuff at the end of the day, and it's pretty bad. And Taya, what's your experience with this sort of thing?
Yeah, so I'm in the Midwest. I'm in the Chicago area, and I'm 15 miles from downtown. And so air quality here isn't horrible. I'm very close from the lake. I'm about 2 miles west of the lake. And so air quality isn't horrible. It gets to, I think the worst I've seen in the summer here, because I don't like riding in the winter outside, is the orange alert, which is unhealthy for sensitive groups, which is, in terms of numerical value, 100 to 150 particles, or however the measurement is in the air, which says, member of sensitive groups may experience health effects. This one, I think it's a combination of you get out, you step out of your house, and you feel the air. Is it only that you feel that the air is, sometimes you can tell that it's just not as good in terms of like, you don't feel like crispness and it's hard to breathe. Yeah. But it also probably has to do with the particles of moisture in the air. If it's high dew point, then it makes it worse. It's like being out in a greenhouse.
Right.
But I tend to, when it gets to orange, I still ride. I haven't had any days here that I remember anyway, looking at the weather and seeing an unhealthy air alert. But even in the orange, I have exercise-induced asthma. And so I have to be careful because if I am going out to do a high-intensity workout outside, I'm going to have a really hard time and hitting my numbers, even in the orange area. So at the same time, so I think about that, and I think about cars, because if you're close to an urban area, even if the air quality is not quote unquote horrible, if you're behind cars all the time, you got to be breathing that stuff too. So it's
true.
Balance there. You sort of, it's one more thing to worry about, I guess. If you're constantly breathing pollution, what is that going to do in the long run?
Right. So really the first thing, first reminder that Nate Dunn brings up is understanding what the air quality index is. So he recommends, and it's the same app that my wife and I pull up every day to figure out kind of what's going on along with the temperature outside. And there's now an Alexa app that will help us. So we could ask Alexa how the air is outside, and she'll be able to tell us how things are too. But it's airnow.gov. And so you can pull up that map and get an idea of this kind of numerical value or air quality index level between good, moderate, unhealthy, and unhealthy for sensitive groups, and then unhealthy that gets you kind of on the other side of things. We've had a lot of days that have been in the red here in California just because of all the fires, and you could really feel it. I mean, the cars are covered with ash in the morning, and that's usually a sign that, hey, you shouldn't be riding outside. It's kind of, so you just have to be kind of cognizant of that sort of thing. The next thing he talks about is one thing that we talk about here on the Coach's Corner is just not needing to stress if you're not getting a workout in, and just take the rest. Take the rest day. You're essentially not getting paid to be on the bike. You're not making money for getting out there and doing your thing. So you take a rest day. The next day, a lot of times can be a lot better. And then to Taya's point about traffic, oh, go ahead.
Oh, you can go on your trainer too. Indoors.
Exactly. Yeah. So staying away from traffic, and if you're indoors, like a lot of our setups are, my setup is kind of hybrid. It's my pain cave we've got to pull in some fresh air from the outside, but not as much as if you're just pulling the air out. But essentially, a lot of times numbers are better in the morning. That means Mitch's place is like negative, like not even on the scale in the morning. It's that good. So when you get the your workout done in the morning, staying away from traffic, like Taya had mentioned, just less cars, depending on where you live. And then again, and going from that, shortening your rides. So maybe not doing that 2-hour ride. So getting it done in like 45 minutes, and just getting that workout in, or getting that aerobic, set up, get that time in could be useful. And then again, like Taya said, ride indoors. A lot of us do it. We know how to do it. Sometimes we do it too much, but really, using those tips could be useful. And using that website is a good place. And so it's a great idea to kind of keep tabs of what's going on. And if you're having trouble, or you're sensitive, you've got asthma or allergies, this could be a place to look to see if you're having issues. It could be from this too. The other one, and I don't know if any of the coaches have issues with this, are like the pollen levels, or like that sort of thing. If you have allergies, that's a whole nother scale that we could talk about on whether you should be indoors or outdoors.
That's one thing we do have here in Michigan. So yeah, I mean, every season I go through it, and I don't have allergies, but I mean, definitely it impacts you. And there's times where we just stay indoors because of the pollen.
Yeah, and that was one thing. Yeah, go ahead, Taya.
I was going to say, I developed seasonal allergies after I moved to the United States. So as an adult, and it makes it hard. It is just as hard as pollution, so, but at least I know what the time period is. I know exactly when it starts, the month of the year, and when it ends, because I know what I'm allergic to.
It's so crazy. So when I went if you don't know, I went to optometry school in Bloomington, Indiana, which is 30 minutes south of Indianapolis, Indiana. And I had no allergies here in California all my life. Moved there it would have been my 20s, early 20s, and it was horrible. Had horrible allergies for 4 years. That was one thing that I got, and I was like, I don't understand. The air is so clean. I had no understanding. But it's essentially called what in science we called it was like the histo. Oh man, I can't remember. Oh, the histo belt. Essentially, where all the pollen ran through. It ran through kind of like a dip through the Midwest. It kind of includes where I was, and probably where Mitch comes up, where Mitch is at. And really, it's really bad as far as pollen and allergies. So even if you come from a place that didn't have any exposures and have no immunities to those, your body would have to rebuild those, or you would just essentially have reactions like allergic reactions during that time of the season. And that's tough too, to be on the bike during that time.
And it's interesting what Nate brings up in his article here. He says that on the one hand, cyclists and other fit individuals are better equipped to handle the increased cardiovascular strain that you have to deal with poor air quality. But then on the other hand, for the same reason, because it's a high ventilation type sport, you're breathing so much and so hard and so deep, then you get more exposure because you're breathing more frequently.
Right, exactly. So you're just getting all of that in and clearing that out. That means you're dipping into the world of like a neti pots at the end of the day to clear everything out.
Right. That's the pool. That's the pool.
Oh guys, don't put that in the pool. That's what a lot of bad stuff goes in the pool. So be careful.
It's what my son tells me when he's got a stuffed nose. I said, "Look, are you sick? Can you swim?" He said, "No, swimming actually really helps." Oh, guess what?
That's where it all goes. All the mucus just ends up in the pool. You guys both have swimming kids, so I'm not quite there yet. But yeah, that's something to look forward to, I guess. All right. Any other comments there, Mitch, from your wonderful blue state?
Nope.
Sounds good. All right, so let's wrap this up today in the Coach's Corner from what's going on this week in the lab. As far as from the strength side, we are continuing our stretching for cyclists 17-minute video, as well as kind of your 15-minute stretch video for when you are off the bike. So definitely just keep these in the routine. That's what we want to keep going. Otherwise, the intensity for really getting some big circuits in is difficult. But getting the stretching and that core movement is really important. I'm going to send this over to Taya for our skills this week. It was a couple good workouts. It was a recovery week, but remember, when you look at this week, there's still a good amount of intensity for those, but they're skill intensity, not high intensity as far as power wattage, power output. So tell us a little bit about the recovery week we had here in the execution lab.
Sure, that's right. So continuing to advance the training, we did high cadence intervals, 1 minute on, 1 minute off. And those are very helpful, as you know, for efficiency and economy, keeping your neuromuscular connections there so you can continue to be fast on your bike. Then we did the power jumps, and this one was great to work on explosive power, but also the jumpiness that you might need when you have to catch up to a breakaway or a rider without a lot of intensity, but really working that skill and torque. So those are quick 10 seconds on and then 50 seconds off, several times repetitions here, mixed in with high cadence as well. And then closing the week, we had a recovery week tempo ride. So again, more high cadence in there. You guys, by the end of this, you're just don't even noticing high cadence anymore. Exactly. And doing 85% of FTP. So working on that tempo range, which is so important for building your aerobic endurance. So yeah, so that was the week and a free ride on Sunday, but short, keeping it short.
Yeah. So that neuromuscular ingraining of that high cadence is always key. During these off weeks, you'll notice that a lot of those workouts will head that direction, and it's a good time and it's a good way to kind of really get it all built in. We do pepper it within the workouts as we go through the weeks, but this is a good time to kind of really take off that intensity and work on those skills, essentially high cadence, low cadence, whatever it may be. So that's great. So coming up this week, we've got another intense week. If you notice, myself, Taya, as well as Mitch are doing live stream and group workouts. It looks like some of those riders that are either not doing the Zwift Academy workouts are coming back. The numbers are growing on that side of things. They're looking for workouts outside of the Academy. Our Academy numbers are still high as far as the group. As far as the knowledge that's growing, it's variable from workout to workout. But we do try to catch some of our videos, not only for doing the workout with us, but also getting the information that we put out to get a better understanding. If you're looking for more information about the different workouts that we're doing in the Zwift Academy, as well as in the execution lab, head over to endurancelab.fit. You can get hooked up there, get linked up there. Our YouTube page also has a lot of those videos as far as the Academy is concerned. We'll be doing a couple workouts from each side, our own execution lab, as well as the Academy. So look out for those as far as us being able to give some output there. So, all right, from my end of things, looks like we've got some good conversation to go to. We've got a lot of things to look at this week. We can follow Ashley Horner, read more about James Lawrence, get onto air quality index and airqualitygov.gov and really take a close look at making sure we're doing the right amount of intense workouts per week and making sure that we're filling in that properly. And then lastly, just getting a better handle on if you in fact are doing the Zwift Academy, getting a handle of what the workouts are doing for us and for you. And if you're looking for a better resource or trying to get more information about the Academy and how to write it in a way where it will make you put it into a training program, head over to endurancelab.fit and search for the Academy Booster. And that will help kind of make it and round it out to be a proper, full training plan. I'll reach out to the coaches. Is there anything else you wanted to bring up for this week? All right.
We got a great week of work ahead. So
yeah, we do. We're gonna be rounding that up. I know Mitch has been a lot of time on the bike. It's been nice to have him there. I've been enjoying his stream, and I always enjoy the music. So
this weekend we're working to put the new paint cave together if I can find some time. So
that's exciting.
We'll share that if it looks nice.
No, it'll work out. If you take even a fraction of the time that you took upstairs building the espresso bar into the kitchen, I think it's gonna look great.
We're almost done with that, so very good.
That's exciting. All right, everybody. Well, thank you for joining us today here in the Coach's Corner. If it's your first time listening and would like to hear more content from the Endurance Lab, head over to your favorite podcast app and search the Endurance Lab, or head over to YouTube or even Spotify and search the same and click subscribe. For more information on when the next lab is, head over to the endurancelab.fit and learn where you can join us to train smart, learn more, and get results. We'll see everybody next week.